There are films that impress us with spectacle, and then there are films that quietly hold up a mirror to everyday life. This story belongs to the second kind. At its heart, it is not about danger or secrecy, but about loneliness, human connection, and the subtle choices that shape who we become. We meet Ayaka, a capable and respected office worker who appears to have everything in place. Yet beneath that stability lies a quiet emptiness, a sense that something meaningful is missing in the spaces between her routine. Ayaka's loneliness is portrayed with restraint and empathy. The film does not dramatize it or turn it into despair. Instead, it shows how emotional isolation can exist even in a life that looks successful from the outside. Ayaka's stories reminds viewers that emotional well-being deserves as much attention as professional achievement, and that acknowledging loneliness is not weakness, but self-awareness. One evening, a chance encounter gently interrupts Ayaka's carefully managed world. In a moment of uncertainty, she meets Sakurai, a man whose calm presence immediately stands out. He is not loud or dramatic, and the film intentionally avoids turning their first meeting into something sensational. Instead, Sakurai's quiet confidence and composed manner create a feeling of safety. He helps Ayaka through a difficult situation, not with force or bravado, but with attentiveness and restraint. This approach reinforces a key educational value of the story. True strength often appears in calm decisions and thoughtful actions, not in extremes. The film carefully builds their connection through shared silences and simple conversations. Their bond feels organic, rooted in mutual respect rather than instant attraction. For Ayaka, Sakurai represents something she has been missing: presence. He listens without judgment, observes without intrusion, and offers companionship without pressure. What Ayaka does not realize is that Sakurai lives a life shaped by responsibilities far removed from her own. The film introduces this contrast subtly, without explicit details or glorification. Sakurai's world is described as demanding and complex, filled with expectations and difficult choices that require constant discipline. Importantly, the narrative does not celebrate this environment or present it as desirable. Instead, it frames it as a reality that carries weight and consequence. Sakurai's character functions as a study in restraint. He does not draw Ayaka into his world, nor does he use mystery to manipulate her interest. Instead, his internal conflict is quietly expressed through hesitation and distance. The film emphasizes that responsibility sometimes means setting boundaries, even when emotions are involved. Ayaka's growing affection is not based on illusion, but on how Sakurai treats her in the present moment. A woman seeking meaning and a man carrying unseen responsibility. Their connection is sincere, yet shaped by unspoken realities. Rather than presenting this as a problem to be feared, the film frames it as an opportunity for growth, communication, and maturity. Ayaka begins to notice that Sakurai's life follows patterns that feel distant from her own. He is present and attentive, yet there are moments when he seems burdened by thoughts he does not share. Instead of reacting with suspicion or fear, she reflects inwardly, questioning what trust truly means in an adult relationship. Meanwhile, Sakurai's internal struggle becomes more visible, though still carefully restrained. His world is described not as dangerous or thrilling, but as demanding and morally complex. Sakurai is not proud of the pressures he faces. He carries them with quiet seriousness. The climax of this section is not marked by action, but by realization. Ayaka becomes aware that Sakurai is intentionally keeping parts of his life separate from hers. This discovery is framed not as betrayal, but as a moment of emotional clarity. She recognizes that secrecy does not always come from dishonesty, but sometimes from a desire to protect. The film encourages viewers to consider context and intention before forming conclusions. Ayaka feels the growing distance, even as she senses Sakurai's care for her. Sakurai's dilemma reaches a quiet peak as he faces a personal choice: continue shielding Ayaka from his reality or risk honesty that could change their relationship. The film maintains its commitment to positive, constructive storytelling. There are no raised voices, no sensational twists, and no moral extremes. Instead, the drama unfolds through internal conflict and ethical reflection. That the central conflict is not about danger or forbidden worlds, but about emotional honesty and personal responsibility. Ayaka and Sakurai stand at a crossroads shaped by care, restraint, and unresolved truth. The final movement of the film brings its emotional themes into sharper focus, not through confrontation, but through understanding. Ayaka, now fully aware that Sakurai carries responsibilities he has never clearly named, faces a decision that is deeply personal. The film resists the temptation to frame this moment as a test of loyalty or courage. Instead, it presents it as a moment of emotional maturity, where choice is guided by reflection rather than impulse. Ayaka takes time to examine her own feelings, and this pause is significant. Rather than demanding explanations or reacting from fear, she asks herself what truly matters to her. The film uses this introspective space to reinforce an important lesson. Meaningful decisions are rarely made in emotional extremes. They are shaped by clarity, patience, and an honest assessment of one's values. This offers a constructive reminder that stepping back is often the healthiest response when facing uncertainty. Sakurai, in turn, begins to shift from protection through distance to protection through honesty. Without dramatizing his circumstances, the film shows him acknowledging that withholding truth, even with good intentions, creates imbalance. His growth is quiet but meaningful. He does not seek sympathy, nor does he justify his choices. Instead, he accepts that responsibility includes emotional transparency when another person's life is involved. What matters is not the specifics of Sakurai's life, but the way both characters approach the truth with respect. The film makes it clear that love does not require sacrificing awareness or personal safety. It requires consent, understanding, and the freedom to decide. Ayaka understands that Sakurai's life carries challenges, but she also recognizes his effort to protect her emotional well-being and maintain clear boundaries. Ayaka's choice is accompanied by self-awareness and ongoing communication, reinforcing that healthy relationships evolve through dialogue, not sacrifice of self. This message is particularly valuable in an educational context, as it discourages harmful narratives while promoting emotional intelligence. By focusing on empathy and responsibility, it transforms what could have been a story of secrecy into a lesson about trust built through conscious choice. The film reminds us that love requires awareness, responsibility, and wise choices. If you value meaningful stories with positive lessons, like, share, and subscribe to continue exploring them.